So welcome everybody, and thank you for being here. It's like this beautiful fall weekend, and it's pretty extraordinary to choose to spend your time here. I know you all have full lives, lots and lots going on, and so it's really big that we choose to do this with our time. Hopefully it'll be beneficial and useful for all the rest of our life. and beyond. And beyond that, yes.
Mama Brandy, to express our gratitude for your taking your time to teach us. We have a few tokens for you. Yes. We planned on making it as tea, but you have an abundance of drinks. So know that it is here, and this cup will be here for you every week for your tea.
Thank you, darling. The dragon cup. Oh, presents. Can I have it later?
It's yours now, whenever you like.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All of you. Thank you. Fabulous. Okay. Let's just sit and meditate for a minute. We'll do a 6-minute Gataka. So really find your comfortable feet. Back straight. And that can also include lying on your back in a full supine position. From where you sit, just starting to take stock of where you are. The sounds happening outside in the outside or outside in the building. And pulling in a little closer, listening a little more closely to the sounds in this room. And finally, withdraw your attention inside. And in order to really get grounded, switch over to awareness of the tactile sensations. So just feeling the places where you contact your cushion, your seat. Notice the sensation of solidity, of firmness. At all those points of contact. Notice the heaviness of your hands on your lap. And then the quality of your attention has become a little more stable, a little more grounded. Switch the object of your focus to the tactile sensations associated with your breath all throughout the field of your body. You might feel the inhale pattern rise up your back and spread up into your collarbones, up into your shoulders. You might feel the exhale pattern in your abdomen. The object is the sensations, physical sensations of the breath throughout the field of the body. That goes fast, doesn't it? Don't want to do more. I'm like, well. Hi, welcome. Since there's such a small group, let's go around and just say our name and what you hope to get out of this weekend. Like, there's a reason. Some of you came because your teacher told you to. And that's a great reason to do something. But then there's another reason, too. Like, what are you working with right now? What would you like to get out of this weekend? Who wants to start?
I'll go first. My name is Pamela, and though it was strongly encouraged by my mama that I be here, the true purpose for this entire path is to learn to better understand what things aren't, to better understand that it's not all about me, to recognize what emptiness is and become enlightened so I can assist all beings. And so I'm here to help with that because the stress in my life is such that I'm not helpful to anybody right now. So I'm looking forward to the reminders that will come with these classes to help me release whatever it is that's keeping me stuck there. Thanks.
My name is Paul, and I understand the class is more talking about the philosophy of Buddhism, and I wanted to delve into that more in a class format. So that's pretty much why I'm here.
Cool.
I'm Kimberly, and I am here because I have a lot of reasons. But right now, my wife is pregnant, and we're going to be having a baby in May, and so I'm trying to squeeze in as much drama as possible before the baby comes, because I do not know what my life will look like after that. So that's why I'm here. I can build up my reserves. So thank you.
My name is Jay, and I'm here because in the past, any class that I have taken from you, I have learned something really profound, and that has helped Thank you.
I'm Lindsay, and I don't know, I think one of the reasons that come to mind is like, I feel like I want to be grounded, and ACI does that for me, so the classes and the format, and for me this will be a review course, and a review of a review course, and I just like can't hear it enough, I want to be reminded again and again and again. So as much as I can fill in my brain and my heart, and be grounded. That's all.
John, I suppose that this is the best thing I could do with these 4 hours today. I appreciate a format where I don't have to make every meeting, and I hope to walk away with a memory or two of wisdom that I've been able to gather on my own individual stuff. Looking forward to 4 hours.
We'll have a break.
This is my break.
Nice. My name's Brandy, and really just like all of you, I'm just hungry. I feel like, what are those blow-up things? I don't know if they have them anymore. Those blow-up things that are weighted in the bottom, and they get punched, and then they go over, and then they come back up. I think I used this example before because it just comes back to me. And life just sort of feels like that. Like we all go out there with the best intentions. Like we're all good people, and we want to be happy, and we want to help the people around us be happy. And then then suddenly I find myself in a situation and responding to that situation. Just, it's all out the window. So I love a lot of what I heard was kind of like, okay, I need to get grounded, and I need to put some stuff in my backpack so that when I'm tired and haven't had any sleep for like 12 consecutive nights, and I have to get up and go to work in the morning, like, what do I have to reach back there and grab? And then eventually, I think also we're tasting, it sounds like you've all studied and practiced a bit, we're tasting that there's this process of we listen to it, we hear the teachings, they come in, they stay with us, some of it stays with us, and we find ourselves mulling it over and like examining it in life as things come up, and that's the kind of contemplating it and thinking about it, and then finally tidbits of it seem to seep down into our being and kind of become some kind of wisdom which is there and it's in us. And it goes from being something that I wrote down to taking notes or something that I heard somebody to say to eventually something that is deep inside of me and deep inside of each one of us. And that's where our reserves and our ability to, not be crazy amidst craziness comes about. I know. I'm hoping that one day, because it hits me over and over again. Too much stuff will be happening. I'll be responding badly to it, and at the time I'm thinking that the problem is the too much stuff that's happening, but then later the residue that stays with me is how badly I responded to it. Like that's actually the part that really saps my energy and saps my happiness and my joy, is just watching myself again and again, snap at the people that I care about, and and like, I love the way you plan to just go through the day, go through any segment of the day, so focused on me and what I want. And everybody I meet becomes like, how can you serve me and what I want? And like, when I wake up from that particular kind of fog, it's kind of like, wow, that was just awful. Because we've all tasted the converse when we're grounded and we're open and we're available and we're interacting with people from this state of like, how can I help? What do you need? What can we do together? Like, it's just a very different thing. I think that we all crave connection, and I think the essence of every spiritual path is about connection. And it's about doing some kind of personal work so that we are available and open for connection. Because I feel myself, when I get stressed, everything gets very tight and constricted, and I become completely disconnected. Not only from the people I love and my here for good. We're all here to hopefully some of this will occur. So this is ACI course 16. ACI, the Asian Classics Institute. This whole there's this big course of study that happens in the Tibetan monasteries, originally in Tibet and now relocated in India. And it's a whole, our teacher says like a PhD program, but more, it's a whole 20-year kind of course of study where it's just like our education system. You go step 1, step 2, step 3. So all of these ACI courses is that course of study taken and put in a different kind of format, a different layout for us, but it's the same material. So the cool thing about ACI 16, it comes after 1 through 15, which is all the new material, and ACI course 16 is a review of the first 5 classes. So for some people in the room, this is a review, and they've already done the expanded version of the same material. And but then it's also a beautiful place to just express, to step in and see, well, like, what is the philosophy outside of the Buddhist teachings? And just to be fair, this is a window into the Buddhist teachings. This is not the window into the Buddhist teachings, because Buddha taught in India 2,500 years ago, and from that point, teaching spread in all directions to all sorts of different countries and cultures. And you'll see themes that are consistent throughout all of them. And then there's also a particular flavor in the Indo-Tibetan. They went from India into Tibet in the 750, again, strong 750, 850, a strong movement into Tibet, and then again in about 1000 AD, a big strong movement of the Dharma going into India, and then it was destroyed in India. And from the biased perspective of the Tibetans, I was going to say, it's very completely and fully been held intact in Tibet, which was pretty much a closed-off country until 1959, when it was invaded by communist China and the monasteries were destroyed. But then a lot of blessing of all of this huge tragedy that occurred is that many of the holders of this wisdom left in the middle of the night and began a few-week march over the Himalaya mountains, carrying in them the whole wisdom and knowledge of what this whole course of study is. So this whole entire country for 1,000 years had basically been like a monastery, where 1/6 of the population were monks, and the whole culture was about these teachings, and spreading them and sharing that, studying them deeply, supporting people who were meditating and realizing these things. So the whole culture was to sustain this. Maybe similar to the way that our culture now currently supports like science. Like scientific research gets gajillions of dollars right now, right, to build these laboratories and do all these things. So in a way, Tibet was a laboratory for a whole country, which was a whole laboratory for spiritual development, following this stuff. So it's a pretty, spectacular path. So the overview of these 10 classes, and it could stretch into 11, we'll see. These 10 classes are ACI Course 1, which is the 3 principal paths. I always forget which principle it is. Is that like the one who's anyway? Okay. And then Course 2 is Perfection of Wisdom. The 3 principal paths, Lamrim, the stages on the path to enlightenment. And these are like, I'll go through this first. Perfection of Wisdom, or Buddhist refuge, what it means to take refuge in Buddhism. 3 is applied meditation. So this is talking about developing a daily practice, talking also about shamatha and the 9 stages of developing complete single-pointed meditation and cultivating the quality of a laser-like attention of mind that can perceive deep ultimate truth. 4, it's a logic course, and it's called The Proof of Future Lives, Past and Future Lives. That's all I'll say about that. And then 5 is all the nitty-gritty about karma. So there's, karma, everybody probably on the street would have something to say about karma, because it's kind of an English word now almost. But karma is actually It's a very beautiful kind of law of nature that you can kind of learn all the rules of it and how it actually works, and then it can really kind of help us to guide. When I'm living according to my intellectual understanding of karma, things are going much better. But because I only really understand it intellectually at this stage, and I haven't fully dropped into it. If I really understood that anytime I hurt somebody else, I'm setting into motion a boomerang which is going to hurt me in the future. If I really, really got that, my behavior would look very different. So for me, in the ways when I'm really feeling that and getting that, my behavior looks really great, and even when it's difficult, it gives me the strength and the understanding and the courage to do the right thing in terms of to not get stressed out and focused on me, but it gives me a little extra reserve to, yes, be stressed out and feel maybe pushed and feel maybe stretched, but to stay open and to recognize, okay, I want this condition right now to end, so I want to act differently in response to it than acting in the habitual way that I usually act, right? So karma, this is one of my favorite courses. Actually, they're all pretty awesome. So we'll have 2 classes. So pretty much this whole weekend will be on review of course 1, and then we'll have 2 classes when we go into the Tuesday nights on each of these other courses like that. So, and that's ACI 16. And please, just in general for this, this is meant to be casual. So anytime you have a question, you want more clarification, don't understand anything, just go ahead and chime in and ask the question. Okay. So the way that we always do this is we talk about our sources and where it came from. And I used to, in the beginning, I remember this was so insignificant to me, but it is interesting now, in order to have a spiritual path takes a heck of a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So, in order for me to really invest my effort and energy into it, I have to have a lot of faith in the path and that it's going to work and that it comes from a really good place. And so it's important that this comes from a whole long lineage. This isn't just something that somebody made up, because there's a ton of stuff out there right now, and some of it might be great, and it might be really great technique, but I like this idea that this, just like all the great teachings of all the enduring religions and paths, this was passed down by somebody who had a very different view of reality than me. This wasn't like someone who happened to make a lot of money this life, get really rich, turns around and writes a book on how to get rich. Because that technique might have worked for this person, but that same exact practice and technique is not necessarily going to work for somebody else. And we see that all the time, right? 2 people can both want to be star football players, and they can both practice just as much, and they can both do all the same things, and that might work out for one of them, and it might not work out for the other, because there's other factors in play that don't have anything to do with their behavior, right? Their genetics. And they're, 2 people want to be an actor. Well, maybe it comes into play as the luck of who you know. Maybe you're just as talented as the other person, and they don't make it, and you do make it. So there's things like that, and this is so somebody I need someone to lay down a path for me to follow that is I feel like they've reached the actual goal, and I feel like they're looking at my life and my struggles and my situation from a very, very big, far-reaching perspective. And I believe that's the gift that Jesus had for us, and he came to the planet and taught what he taught. And Muhammad and all the great, teachers, that's the point, is that, the Buddha means awakened, and after going through all of this practice, he sat in meditation and had these breakthroughs and became awakened, and his peers from before could see that something has changed, and then he started to teach, and so I guess there's no way that we can know that, but then for a path to actually stay alive in the world means there must be some tremendous amount of value in it. So if this has been here and happening for 2,500 years and it's still being passed on in practice, then it means it's getting results, because the great part about, stuff that doesn't work falls away, right? It just doesn't work. That's the great part about capitalism. Stuff that doesn't work will just fall away eventually. There are other problems about it. Maybe that was a bad analogy. Okay, so the sources. The root text is called Lamsa? Or Lamrem. Oh, name of, yeah. Lamsa, I don't know. Is there anyone who's doing the Tibetan? we won't do Tibetan script, but do you guys even do the Tibetan? I mean, Lamrim is kind of, okay, we'll just do Lamrim. The root text is Lamrim, and Lam means path, and Rim means stages. And here, path, and then the name of this particular text is Lam So Nam Sum. Path, principal or primary, and then that's a pluralizer, and then 3, the number. There's 3 principal paths. And the word Lam is really cool. Lam, Alan Wallace talks about it as being like a personal revolution. Like, we've had revolutions on the planetary scale that have changed the course of humanity, right? Like, was it Galileo that was like basically hung for suggesting that it wasn't the whole of all the cosmos that we could see revolving around our planet Earth, but rather we were in motion around the sun, right? He was like hung because that was like, it was accepted at the time that the Earth was the center of all existing things and everything revolved around us, which is so great. Who feels like that? I do. And so it's this big thing to suggest that no, actually, you're not the center of the world. We're all going around that big thing over there, anyway. So Alam is like that kind of a revolution that changes the way we think and perceive things forever, but it's a personal thing. So it's actually called, another word for Alam is Tokpa, which is a realization. And that's this word for like something that you just realized. And it changes you forever after that. I remember I had like a little mini realization, and I don't know where it falls on all of the Lamrims, but when I was like a very entitled teenager, typically blaming my parents for everything and all of the problems in my life, it suddenly, when I was in college and I went back to visit my dad and my stepmom, like, it's just who I'd been fighting against for a decade, like just, and I suddenly realized that these 2 people were human beings who had problems, who had things that they were afraid of, who had dreams that had not come true, who had like, in that process, their hearts were breaking a little bit as they got older and like succumbed to their responsibilities and couldn't find a way through that, and that they were like just brokenhearted and doing the best that they could. And like that switch, because up to that point, think of how a teenager thinks of their parent. You're just whatever. You're here for me. Right? And I'm mad at you when you're not responding to me in the way that I want you to. And I'm justified in fighting against you in any way that I can because your whole definition is that you exist for me. And it was big for me when it suddenly just occurred to me that like, wow, they're just people struggling and doing the best that they can. And some of their tools are not great. And some of the decisions they've made because they don't have the best tools aren't great. That's true. That's true. But it's not like they've failed me out of some kind of intentional wish to let me down and hurt me. It's just that they were doing the best they could, and maybe it wasn't that great sometimes, And that was like, somehow that was some kind of a realization, and from that point on, my whole relationship with them shifted. And I didn't have this kind of huge sense of anger and retaliation and blame towards them, because there was just nowhere for that to land, and I got that really big. So we've all had Lams, we've all had realizations that have just changed kind of our stance in life throughout time. So we're going to talk about this weekend, Lamsum Namsum, the three principal realizations on the spiritual path towards enlightenment, towards awakening. We will also talk about what enlightenment is, because that's also a word that's like karma, that's sort of thrown around a whole bunch, and we'll define the way that they mean it here. And then that will keep unfurling to you through time as well. So, the lineage of this, the Lamrim is a whole bunch of teachings. Some of it will be familiar. And it pretty much started with, I think Akisha, in about 1000, was the one who kind of codified it and put it all together. And then, skipping ahead, the author of our text is Jetson Papa. And he's a big historical figure in this one particular lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, of which there are 4 main ones. Anyone remember his dates?
1357, 1419.
This is something we're kind of hilariously chained in here. So Atisha was in about 1000. The teachings were passed along through the Kadampas. Jetsunpapa really dove into these teachings. He wrote Lamso Namsum, which is just 13 short verses. He also wrote Lamrim Chenmo, the great book on the steps to liberation. And really what's so great about this Lamrim is that Atisha was Indian and he was requested by the Tibetans. This was this period when these great amount of teachings were flooding over the mountains, over the Himalayas from India into Tibet. And Atisha it was requested, like, what's this whole teaching about? Can you give us an instruction manual? So the Lamrim is like a how-to instruction manual on what to do, on what to practice, to really change our minds, so that we can really access our full potential and be happy. That's what the Lamrim is. So Jetsunpapa did a lot of work on it in the 1400s. That's our main thing. Then now, fast forward, we're in these readings. We didn't print them up. There's these huge books that have readings, which I don't know. They're available, and we can get them to everybody if you're interested in reading them on your computer or printing them up. Our commentary is by a lama named Pabonka Rinpoche. I might have a sheet. Pabonka Rinpoche, who lived in, do you remember, was it like 1821? 1878 to 1921?
41.
How much? 41? Oh, that's right. 1941. Okay. So super recent. Pabonka Rinpoche was a great lama in Tibet at the beginning of the last century. Great teacher of the people. He wrote the commentary, which we don't have the name for, and it doesn't, so it's okay. And then later in the lineage here is our teacher's teacher, Geshe Losang Karchen Ken Rinpoche. And those of you who need these for your homework questions, I bet you already know how to spell that. And this was a lama, so we just call him Ken Rinpoche. And this is a lama that, after the invasion of Tibet, went to India and then made his way to New Jersey and taught a very devoted group of students in New Jersey for several years. And Ken Rinpoche passed in 2002. So I think he was 1921 or 2004 to 2004. And then our teacher, Geshe Michael, studied with Ken Rinpoche for many, many, many years. So, and all along here, these weren't just Pabonka Rinpoche reading this book of Jetsunpapa's from 500 years ago, but this was a living lineage of teachers. At every point in time, there was a teacher who was alive who was passing this on to their students, and their students were practicing it, realizing it, and then passing it on to their students. So it's a beautiful way to think, because it also, the point is that we're all teachers, and it doesn't matter if we're ever going to get up in front of a room and give a talk, but we're teachers in the fact that who we are influences the people around us, And a lot of you are raising children or will be raising children or maybe have raised children. And the thing is, it's like, but everybody's like this. Like, we don't learn from what other people tell us. We learn from being around them and what qualities they have inside that rub off on us. That's how we learn from other people. So we are all that, whether we like it or not. We are all that kind of an influence on others, and then we have the opportunity to be a very helpful influence, kind of a beacon in the world. Any questions about lineage?
So the last arrow goes to where?
Goes to Geshe Michael Roach, who I learned this with from. I've been studying this since 1996. And then who I got this actual course with that we're doing right now is Dr. Winston McCullough, who is a great teacher who will be here the weekend before Thanksgiving. You can't miss it. He's awesome. So in studying for this and getting my notes together for this, I've been going back and listening to this class I did with him in 2002, which has been really, really fun. Because he's awesome. I love him.
That's fun to know.
Yeah. It's really fun. So, and then you're at the bottom of the arrow. That's where the arrow goes. And then from you, it goes into the people in your life, like that. teachers in there. They're all important. All right, and into it. Name the 3 principal paths. Okay. I'm going to actually do some Tibetan. I won't do the script because that'll just take a long time, and who wants that? So, Ngenjung, number 1, it's Ngenjung in Tibetan. And the word Ngen means definitely or certainly. And Jung means arising. John, do you want to scooch to the center? I just realized I'm probably in your view. You can scooch in any time if you feel like it. Arising or coming out. So the common translation for the first principal path is renunciation. In English. But yet, it comes from these 2 words. This is the word in Tibetan, Ngenjung, which is kind of a different connotation, doesn't it? Like, we hear renunciation and you're like, oh, I got to give up all the stuff I like. I can have no more fun. If I'm either spiritual or I'm happy. Right? Like, I'm either having a good time or I'm getting enlightened. And I don't know where we got that story, but that's a big story that we carry. So the word renunciation, we're going to talk a lot about it, but it actually means, like, definitely coming out. So there's a big question. Coming out of what? Coming out of suffering. I mean, that's the point of the spiritual path, is to come out of suffering. And I don't know about you, but, like, dancing is not suffering for me, and eating really great food is not suffering, and going out on the town with friends is not suffering, and loving my family and having a good time with them is not suffering. So it's not, there's no part of renunciation, that is like giving up all the good things in life. It needs to definitely emerge, to definitely come out. They do say, like, we do hear definitions of it, like, to leave the worldly life behind, right? To leave the worldly life and get on the spiritual, to leave the worldly life behind, to get on a spiritual path and use our time wisely. It does have all of those kinds of connotations to it. But then, what does it mean to leave the worldly life behind, right? It might not mean, like I said, leaving your family and not having any more fun. It might not be something so simple as that. It might be a more subtle thing that has to do with the way that we're thinking about things and the way that we're interacting with things. So the first principal path is Ngenjung, renunciation.
So the definitely arising means that if you have renunciation, you'll definitely arise from suffering?
I think the definitely arising means that, because renunciation is a path, it's a realization that happens inside of our heart. So it's when this thing clicks of, like, the way that I've been doing some stuff, the way that I'm engaging, the wheel, the, like, little gerbil wheel that I'm running on is not going to lead me towards happiness at some point. So then we start to step back, we start to get a different perspective on our life and on our things. Maybe we get into a path, maybe we get into Buddhism, and we're like, okay, this is samsara, running on this wheel of suffering. The possibility of nirvana, liberation from this wheel of suffering, is there. And so I like they say the Buddha, like the Buddha was a prince, right? So the Buddha was being groomed to be the king of this massive kingdom. So he already had everything he wanted. Everything was as comfortable and fabulous and perfect as it could be. Everybody bowed to him. Everybody honored him. He was being groomed to take over as ruler for this kingdom. And then when he finally left the palace of perfection, everything perfect, and went out and saw what was happening in the streets, even though everybody put on their best clothes to welcome the Buddha when he went by, and everybody decorated, like, I don't know, all their cows with flowers and made everything look as good as they possibly could, he spotted in the crowd old people, and he spotted in the crowd sick people, and he spotted in the crowd a dead body being carried to to the funeral pyre to get burned. And the Buddha, because the way that his mind worked, he was like, well, what's happening with that? Everyone's so happy and beautiful. What's happening with that person? That, like, hobbling, sick, like, wrinkling, weak person? What's happening with like, just the non-sick, hobbling, weak people, the old ones? What's happening with the guy who's not moving anymore, like being carried through the street? And then, so old age, sickness, and death were explained to him. And he was kind of like, so you mean that everyone in this crowd of people, everyone in my palace, me, my family, we're all at some point going to get sick, and we're all at some point going to get old, and we're all at some point going to die? And when they said, yes, that's the way that life is, he's like, well, why are you all having so much fun? Like, why? What's okay about that? You know, so it's just kind of, the way that it occurred to his mind was kind of like, this problem is looming in the future at some point, which we don't know. And how do we just go on with our day-to-day life and just continue having fun and throwing parties in the streets if the only thing waiting is old age and sickness and eventually death? If that is necessarily at the end of this path, then like I want to, and then he had a drive to find if there was another option. Like his mind, like all great revolutionaries, could not accept that that was the only way, even though everybody around him accepted that that was the way it goes. Oh, we're all going to get sick, we're all going to get old, we're all going to die, so just make the best of it now. Have a good time while you're here. But to his mind, he's like, no, I want to know if there's a way to stop those things. I want to know if it has to be like that. And so he gave up the whole kingdom, and he gave up his whole thing, and he went to interact and to be part of the great spiritual practitioners of the time, and to explore the ideas available to him then. You know, like that. So I think it's like, so I mean, in a way, it's so cool. It's like, so the Buddha, who this path traces back to, he was part of another path before, just the way that Jesus was Jewish before, and he was practicing within the context of, Judaism, which was being practiced at that time. So they're kind of the same thing, really. But like, these revolutionaries, and I think that in this day and age to decide that you want to, the best thing you can do on a beautiful Saturday is come to this class, it's to honestly be like a revolutionary. Because there are some other things that we can do. There are lots of nice things to do out there, However, maybe we've gotten to the point where it's like, no, I've actually been around long enough to watch that things are just kind of going downhill, and some part of me doesn't want to accept that that's just the only way it can be. Some part of me wants to see if, even though it seems that most people, like sheep being led to slaughter, are just accepting that plan and going along with that. And they're getting on the freeway at 8:30 in the morning, and they're driving to the job they don't like, and then they're getting back on the freeway at 5 o'clock at night and driving back to get really, get a little bit of TV watching in and numb out before they have to get up and do it again tomorrow. So it's like, and so we're kind of in this situation where it seems that the vast majority of this culture that we live in just kind of accepts this condition. This is what life is, and we're going to ignore the fact that we're going to die sometime, right? And just keep on plowing through and try to milk from it what I can right now. The Buddha didn't accept that. He's like, no, there's got to be another way. And I think, so the definitely coming out is when something switches inside our heart to say like, no, this isn't acceptable to me. I don't know if there's an answer. I don't know if there's a solution to these problems. But some people have said that there are, and I want to try and find that. I want to find that. So our mind has shifted towards a motivation to live in a way that I'm no longer just buying into whatever the mass belief of the common culture of the time is. I'm actually going to kind of go against the grain and try to use my time wisely and see if there's a way I can cut through and get free. Get free of this necessity for old age, sickness, and death, and losing everything that I have. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It sounds like something that could come in phases, like the wall that I hit recently. And you reach a certain level and then get to the next level and just rising up.
Yeah. I've noticed, one of the ways they describe the suffering of the human life is it goes from high to low. Things are great, and then they suck, and then they're great, and then they suck, and it's just kind of always on that pattern. And that's one of the 6 ways that Buddha described the suffering of a human life, is that we get something and then we lose it. And the more, when we've gotten it and then we're identified with it, and when it's torn from us, it's more painful to lose it even. So that's another part of it. It's like the suffering of change is that there's this interesting thing like, is a good relationship suffering? No, it's fabulous. Is a great meal suffering? No, it's fabulous. But because this is the cycle within samsara, is that great relationship in one way or another will be ripped from me and it'll come to an end. And it's almost like the more I have loved someone and the more I've opened my heart to somebody, when that person is ripped away, whether it's through we just got in a fight and separated, or they died or I died or whatever it is, then how agonizing is that? There's a hole in my heart where this person needs to be. And that is the description of the life that we're in. That's the description. The renunciation means my motivation, my purpose it's a realization in our heart. My purpose, my reason for living is that I want to get out of samsara. And we'll get in a minute to the definition of samsara. Korwa or kordo in Tibetan, and it's wheel. So it's literally the wheel that just keeps spinning around and around and around and around and around. Like same old story. Just keep doing it again and again and again. And that's how our current life of being forced to lose all the good things we get, and all these kinds of suffering, that's how they define our current life and describe it. As opposed to nirvana, which is freedom or liberation, like the proposition is that it doesn't have to be that way, and that there's a way to switch that. Jesus went around saying it all the time, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Repent. Change something about the way you're seeing things, the way you're understanding things, the way you're living your life, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Yeah, so renunciation is more of an attitude aspiring towards freedom. And so I think we have these things in realizations. What happens for me is I'll get a sense of motivation and be really dedicated, and then I hit a kind of a plateau. And then my mind kind of shifts and I just start to take for granted sort of where I'm at. And then my practice gets a little flaky and a little flat, and then I lose something that's really dear to me, and something switches, and then things kind of suck again. And then I look back to Dharma, and then I start practicing Dharma again, and our practice goes in a high to low thing. Our motivation, our understanding, the intensity with which we're focusing on it, all those things do this pattern. Renunciation, though, as a lam, as a realization, once we get it, I'm trying to stay in order, which I can never do. We'll get there. There's a definition of it, but it's like when day and night the thought is arising. Like when that shift happens, it's a forever shift. So yeah, we've gotten tastes of it for sure. We go to a good teaching, we get tastes of it. But if you really have renunciation, the thing is we don't get distracted by the meaningless affairs of this life. Like the Buddha, who was a prince, could have easily gotten distracted. He was Paris Hilton, only more, could have easily gotten distracted by the meaningless affairs of this life. Like the baubles and the shiny little things of samsara are very tempting. But once we get renunciation, we're just whatever. It doesn't matter if I have that for 1 year, 5 years, 40 years. It's still just going to be ripped from me in the end, and I don't want that. I don't care. And the picture is always. Do you remember the movie Titanic? It's the boat is going down. Half the ship is sinking, people are dying, and they're is it the Rockefellers or somebody, or in the back, super fancy suite in their tuxedos, just sipping on really fancy cognac, pretending like everything is okay. And in 30 minutes, they're going to be underwater dead. The boat is going down, and that's the situation, really, So once we have renunciation, we just realize that, and it doesn't mean be dour and unhappy and don't enjoy the good things that are here and don't love the people that are around us. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means, we'll get more to it, but it doesn't. But it doesn't mean to be unhappy. But it does mean to.
I have a question.
Okay.
Could you say then that this particular path has to do with non-attachment, non-attachment to the up and down, which means that when you're happy, you can remain not attached to that as well as sadness.
Yeah, we're going to get to that totally.
Is that this one, or is that something else?
No, I would say that's definitely within the path of renunciation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we're that's right here in the yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we're right onto it. The second principal path. Bodhicitta, or I don't know, we don't need this button. Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta. Does anyone know what bodhicitta is?
Desire to reach Buddhahood to help all beings.
The desire to reach Buddhahood to help all beings. Yeah. And that's the second path. And that's, so this is just the overview. We'll go into all of these in detail. So that's, yeah. I mean, that's really all. It's basically, renunciation is basically like, I'm in a ship that's going down. And bodhicitta is actually that same attitude, but we look around and we say, just as I'm in this ship that's going down, so is everybody close to me that I love, so is everybody that I don't even know, and so is everybody in the entire world. And wouldn't it be amazing if I could get to the point where I could help them? You know, I can't, you said it so silly, like we're running around trying to help people, but if I'm a stressed out mess, I'm incapable of helping them. You know, like my family's like, I'm so important, I gotta stay here, you need me so much, and they're like, no, Mom, go to yoga. I'm always fine. Pizza's in the freezer, you go to yoga. I'm not helping them when I'm like running around stressed out trying to cook a meal. They're like, no, really? We're fine, go. Yeah, so bodhicitta is just, it's that same kind of renunciation turned towards others. We gotta get out so that I can help others get out. And then Yang Dakse Tawa, I keep going back and forth because we did so much of the Tibetan. Yang Dakse Tawa, Yang Dak means pure, perfect, correct, and then Tawa is view. So this is called the correct view or understanding of reality. So we'll talk a lot about this one. And it's basically my current understanding of reality. If we're in a suffering world, our current understanding of reality is flawed. And they say this thing within that even though all living beings want to be happy, we want to be happy, we want to avoid pain. When we go, which is great and it's fine, but my understanding of how to get happiness, every time I go grab at happiness, reach towards the things that I think are going to make me happy, because I don't understand reality, I'm actually pushing happiness further away, and I'm calling suffering and pain to me. So although we run towards happiness and we flee from suffering, because of our misunderstanding of how things function, what we're actually doing is pushing away all the things that would pushing away the causes that would bring me happiness in the future, and creating and pulling in the causes that would bring me suffering in the future. So Yang Dakse Tawa, or the third principal path, correct view, is basically seeing that karma is running the show, and seeing that the way to create abundance for myself is through generosity practice right now. The way to have a friend, if I'm lonely, is to be a friend to others, right? The way to have people be nice to me is to be nice to others. Like the way we get everything through this simple principle that really operates like the law of gravity. There's just no way around it. The simple principle of what we give to others is what comes back to us. And yet it doesn't feel like that, to my mind, most of the time. And that's ignorance. And so they always say the root of samsara, being caught on this wheel, is ignorance, misunderstanding how the world works. Then there's other parts of correct view that aren't as, like, that's really the main one, the karma thing. But one of them they say is is to really not really, and this one it's important. It's very important, and it's also, if this is a big stumbling block, then everything doesn't need to hinge on this. It's the belief in past and future lives. According to the systems of Asia, of the East, like, there's a subtle mental continuum that really is in the core of each side of us, and this goes on back to beginningless time. There was no beginning of it, and on into the future. So that the subtlest core of your mind stream, or the deepest place of your consciousness, is a continual thread. And it didn't begin at conception, or it didn't begin at birth, and it won't end at death. It continues. And so, just like a mala, or but it's not really a circle, a mala, an endless thread that goes off in both directions. This life is just like a bead on that thread. It's like we're born into this particular set of genetics to these parents. We grow with these particular conditions, and we develop these particular personality traits. And this will fade away, and this will die. But but the essence of what's stored in the very deep continuum of our minds, that goes on into the future. And so it's part of the correct view piece because it makes the stakes be a little bit more significant, you know. And it makes it be, there's nothing more tragic than suicide. Because everybody who commits suicide, my guess is they want to get away from some pain that they cannot, that is overwhelming right now in the future. Right now, they can't deal with it and they just need to escape. And they don't see any other option. And yet, according to this system, that's not an option either. There's only one way to get out of the suffering, and that's through a practice. It doesn't have to be Buddhism, but through a practice that changes the way that I understand reality so that I can get out of this loop, you know. We'll still exist after we're enlightened. We'll still exist after nirvana, but we'll just be very happy. we'll just be happy. We'll be free. More important than even like happy, I mean happy in a deep sense, and then free, you know, like that. So, yeah, and then the third part of Young Dr. Tao is understanding emptiness. And again, big word, we'll talk about it more. Understanding that things, the way that, you know, the official things don't have a nature of their own. Nothing is self-existent. Things are not self-existent. Nothing has a nature of its own. Things lack any independent nature. And the nature that they do have, that I perceive in them, is provided by me and by my past conditioning, by my past habits, by my past story, not from the thing itself. Yet, when I interact with someone who's like pissing me off, am I thinking, oh, look at me having been so irritating to somebody in the past that right now I'm experiencing an irritating person? No, because I'm operating by not correct view. I'm thinking you're irritating. I got to yell at you and make you go away, or whatever I do to make you go away. You know, but I'm feeling like I'm being attacked by an irritating person. And correct view is understanding how the irritatingness is not actually in the person that's coming at me. I'm somehow supplying that irritatingness. And then it gives us, if we can understand that, it gives us the tools to get rid of the irritatingness in the world, which is the good news. Like that. So.
Which in a weird way is what I meant by not taking things so personally. And that when they're yelling at me, whatever they're yelling isn't really about what they're yelling. It's about recognizing that I created that at some point so I can uncreate it. Right? Because some of the pressures of this life, some of the things that people throw at us and not owning it and not feeling always responsible for it and having to fix it.
So we get way too sucked in a way. We get way too sucked into all the detailed stuff. And which is good. If somebody needs us to hear them, we need to listen. But, yeah. And then I noticed also, well, we'll talk about it more when we get there. Totally. It's all the nitty-gritty of that. Maybe this could be okay. I often will find myself frustrated with a difficult situation, thinking there's some perfect words I can find right now to make it all be okay. And there's sometimes not. In the moment that I can say right now to make this pain go away, to make the conflict end right now. Sometimes right now there's just not. There's just this surrendering into the moment and like, this sucks. This flat out sucks. It hurts me. I think it's hurting them. This is not the kind of interactions I want to have. The reason I'm having this interaction right now is that I've been like a butthead to somebody before. And like, this just sucks, you know? And like, and we still need to try, of course, to do our best in the moment, but like, there's not necessarily the way to maneuver right now that's going to make it all be roses again. And I fall into thinking that I'm like scrambling to find the right thing to do or say right now, and like, maybe there's not. Right now, you know? Yeah. All right. Questions? Ideas? So where is all this going? So we've got these three principles: past, now it's like, no, you know the right, renunciation, bodhicitta, and correct view. And then where's all this going? What's the progression of this path? Okay, It's homework question number 6, and it says, what are the 2 bodies of a Buddha? So right now, so it's funny to say the 2 bodies of a Buddha, the 2 parts of a body of a Buddha. What are the main parts that make you up? Just 2 big main parts. Pardon? Physical and mental, body and mind. So it's just the same. Like, so what does the body of a Buddha look like? The Sanskrit word is rupakaya. Rupa is form, and then kaya is body. This is what a Buddha looks like. Yeah, that would be something. So rupakaya, the rupakaya of a Buddha. So once Buddha means awake, right? Once we've awakened, once you've awakened, this is going to be what makes you up. There's two aspects to the form body, and one is it's called the emanation body, the nirmanakaya. And for a Buddha, we're currently bound by time and space. We can only be in one place at one time, occupying one body. For a Buddha who has awakened and seen through all the limitations of the misperceptions of the mind, they're no longer bound by that. And so that's the Yangyakbetawa. And then similarly, and then at the same time, bodhicitta is this infinite love for every being. So like they've taken this kind of altruistic heart, and maybe we share that kind of love for 1 or 2 or 5 other people in our life. But a Buddha there's a line that every one of us is drawing between me and other. And then sometimes it's a family member, and I feel like they're a little bit encased in my line, and their happiness becomes very important to me. But there's always a line. There's a line that, just out of habit, we are drawing between others. And that line keeps me in a box and keeps me unable to really fully reach through that. The Buddha has pushed that line out, and so it is around every living being, which means that their sphere of concern, their love, their bodhicitta is so completely includes each and every one of us that what's so interesting, that like blows the lid off what can limit them, and they have the ability to emanate in any form at any time, anywhere to help everyone. It's like bajillions of them sent out anyway, maybe to be somebody's little dog or little cat that is just some sweet person's companion, some lonely person's one companion. Maybe it's to be your mother, maybe it's to be your father, maybe it's to be your child, maybe it's to be your friend. We don't know. The Buddha can emanate as all the trees in Sacramento, as the river, as the planet itself. There's no limitation on. Because of pure understanding, it almost goes backwards. Because of pure understanding, Yangyakbetawa, because of total pure motivation that just loves everybody else, there's a limitlessness when we fully realize those things. And then we are unbounded by time, space, anything, and we are out there serving. Those deep intentions and motivations are then free to manifest. So the Buddha is off helping people all the time in all ways. Should be 1, and then A, I don't know, and then B. And that's the Nirmanakaya, if you're a Buddha head. And then the second part of the Buddha's physical form is the Sambhogakaya. And Sambho means party. Boga? Oh, boga, like yoga boga, yeah.
Boga is party.
So Sam must be like.
Samboga is the right party.
Is the what?
Sam means the right party.
Oh. Like.
The equal path, right view.
Oh yeah. Like yeah. Like Sam must
Boga is
be.
party.
Okay.
And party you can do bad party.
Or good party. This is the pure party. All right. So the Buddha also, amidst being out in the Nirmanakaya, emanating everywhere, is at the right party. It's important to be at the right party. Because there's a a lot of good news about being at the right party, which is in a Buddha's mind, which is that everything gives you bliss. You're just totally blissed out, and you're totally happy, and so this is often called the enjoyment. There's the emanation body and then the enjoyment body of the Buddha. You know, and there's all these things they talk about realms where everybody there is like high being, fully enlightened, or great bodhisattvas, and they're all just at the right party, like having this like great music, Radiant Friends is playing, you know, and just totally blissed out. So everything gives the Buddha pleasure. The second big body of the Buddha. You said there was two parts. There's the physical, which is rupa, form, and then there's the dharmakaya, which is the mental side. We have a body, we have a mind. So then there's the dharmakaya. And this has two aspects as well. And one is the it's kind of called the dharmakaya. And this refers to the omniscience of a Buddha. The omniscience of a Buddha. And again, there's something about correctly understanding how things exist, and there's something about so deeply developing this altruistic mind that expands the limits of what we can know. And maybe know in an encyclopedia, Wikipedia kind of way, but I think also it's more like get the feeling of just know, like more of an empathic kind of knowing. Like there's like you can sit with a friend and you can listen to them and you can be kind of like analyzing what they're saying and trying to solve their problems, or you can sit with a friend and listen from your heart in this kind of empathic place where you really like stretch out and spread, and we have the ability as human beings to, in that sense, when we can really learn to click into that form of listening, know what they're saying. You know, not in a sense of like, I'm going to read your mind, and maybe it can feel like that, but it's really know. Like if we can listen from the right place, we can know someone else's story. And then the Buddha can listen not just to what I say is my rendition of my story, but the Buddha can listen to like our whole being. And the whole being and the whole condition of everything at once. So for me, so it's omniscience, but like sometimes I feel like that makes me feel like a whole lot of stuff is spinning around inside my head, you know, that day when you're like studying for your organic chemistry final or something. And I don't think it's that kind of a quality. It's more this kind of knowing, you know, this kind of knowing, of a sense of a deep connection and a knowing. And a knowing, most importantly, what the Buddha knows what we need to stop doing and what we need to start doing to get happy. Like more importantly than knowing information about whatever stars or little like amoeba under the sea, the Buddha knows how the world functions. The Buddha knows what the causes of suffering are. The Buddha knows how to stop those, plant the causes for happiness, and how to go about that. You know? So omniscience. The other part of the dharmakaya is called the svabhavakaya. And svabhava means self, sva and bhava nature, like so the self nature. And this is the emptiness of all of the other aspects or bodies of a Buddha. The fact that, we said this in Yangtak Vaitawa, the fact that they don't have a nature of their own. And this is, when we hear the word Buddha nature, we all have Buddha nature, that's the svabhavakaya. I don't have a svabhavakaya right now because the other parts of me are enlightened. But we do all have Buddha nature, which is the potential. So that's the thing that really correct view is focused on. Right now, like Brandy's concept of who Brandy is very like self-existent and solid. And no matter how many good things people might say, oh, this, I hear that and I'm like, okay, great, thank you, but I know who I really am. I know what my real motivations are. I know all the stuff that I've done that I'm ashamed of. I know how limited I am. I know how afraid I am. I know. And all of these concepts that we hold about ourselves, we're holding in a way that is fixed as though that's really what I am. As though that's really what I am. And the Svabhavakaya, the Buddha nature, is the fact that no, actually inside it, all of those things might be true. They might be habits, deep habits that I'm carrying with me, maybe even into this life. And in this life, all the activities and all the things that I've done and all the things I've witnessed have added to them. It's likely, right? So those patterns very well might be true. But to realize that, but Buddha nature is the fact that actually underneath that and inside that, you're available. And that's the one thing that can be said about any one of us, is that none of the qualities, the good things, the bad things, none of any of it is fixed, none of it is self-existent, none of it is necessarily assumed and always there. We all have Buddha nature. We all have this blank slate potential to wake up, to become awakened beings. And that's the thing. It's like the Buddha was just like all of us. But the Buddha saw a problem and worked hard to discover a solution to that problem. That's all. Like, no different. So it's not, and then when we get to be a Buddha, when we see the problem, when we work hard to solve the problem, and we make these changes and transform, then the Buddha nature, which was there all along, is called the Svabhavakaya. And it's the fact that the reason that the Buddha is omniscient and has no barriers on what the Buddha can know, on what she can know, is because she's practiced. The reason that the Buddha is hanging out at the perfect party is that the Buddha has practiced for a very long time taking care of others in every possible way. In fact, the Buddha a long time ago developed bodhicitta, which is this passionate drive to live my life, to get out, renunciation, but to get out in a way that I can help others get out as well. When that became the core driving force at the center of this being's life, like all of the momentum gathered in this whole process is now, as an awakened being, is now ripening in this experience of total bliss all the time. And being surrounded by people that you just love and you're so happy to see at every possible moment. And they make you feel great, and you make them feel great, and there's just this beautiful kind of thing, right? So even, it's not that Buddhahood, awakening, it's not like it's a heaven in the sky that I got to get to. It's a heaven that I got to get to by creating the seeds, the causes for it, right? Because there's a blank slate called my own Buddha nature, this potential, this possibility that we all have, that's the fundamental core of all of our being. And if I can understand things and work and practice, it'll plant the seeds for me to be at the perfect party while I'm, because of my love, sending out everything to help every being that they need. So that's the description of enlightenment. How about that?
Where's the matrix to just plug it in?
I know.
Remove all the layers.
I think it's really important. It was very helpful to me to realize. So I hear all this, and I think the way we hear it in the beginning is like we get it to some degree. We get it at least in a hopeful sense of like, I hope that's true, or something wakens up inside of us, and we're like, okay. And then when I go back to my life, and when I'm blowing it, when I'm yelling at my husband, when I'm yelling at my daughter, when I'm on the road, like, have you not? I won't go into it. I drive now 2 hours a day in heavy traffic, and it is not bringing out this pretty side of myself that I'm excited to meet at all. When we're failing, when I'm failing, when I'm hearing myself think thoughts that are not at all in accordance with any of this, when I'm hearing myself say things that are just not the person that I want to be, they're not the future that I want to live in, they're nothing like this, I feel like I'm failing. And it's very beautiful to realize that when we're struggling, when we're put in a difficult situation, when we're being stretched to the max, and within that we're struggling and struggling and struggling to do the right thing, and then we're failing again and again and again. We're failing, but we're getting back up, and we're struggling and we're struggling. That's actually the practice. And that's actually the most important practice we can do. And that is far more powerful in terms of karma than it is to be having the kind of day where, like, I'm just, I don't know, I'm just super abundant, I just got a big raise, and I'm feeling all happy, and I'm driving in the car, and there's a person standing on the corner with their, like, we need help, and I'm like, look at me, the good Dharma student, here's 5, good luck. And I can look in their eye and respect them and love them and be like, I hope you're okay. That's a beautiful act of generosity. That's fine. But when it's just easy, and it's good, do that when it's easy. But that's not nearly as powerful as the day when I'm just stressed. I've got too much to do, and I've got too many people needing too many things. And at this moment, I don't have an emanation body. I have one body. And it needs a certain amount of sleep every night, or it freaks out. And it needs a certain amount of time taken to take care of it, or it freaks out. And so I'm stressed beyond. I'm throwing it. I'm yelling at my daughter. A minute later, I'm coming back. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. I'm overwhelmed. That's no excuse for yelling at you, and I'm very sorry. And then I yell at her again a minute later. Like to be caught in that schizophrenic, bizarre place where we feel like we're the biggest losers on the planet but to be struggling to do the right thing is actually more powerful in the long run. And that's right there in that is where we burn stuff up. It's actually where we're burning stuff up. It's just that at the time, it doesn't feel like spiritual practice. Because my idea of spiritual practice is to be like, kind person that rolls the window down and hands the person a 5, and they look back in my eyes and smile, and we smile at each other, and they say, God bless you, and I say, God bless you, and on we go. Like, that's what I think spiritual practice looks like. And it does. But it very much also looks like the other thing, too. Can anyone relate to that experience? Like living in a booby-trapped house of horrors. My own mind. So this is what they claim the goal is, the potential, and that we will reach if we practice the 3 principle path.
Mama, can I propose a 5-minute break?
Absolutely.
Selfishly, because I could go pee.
That's perfect. In fact, please do that all the time. So let's take a 5-minute break. Actually, let's take a 6-minute break. I'll set the timer. Yeah, the timer. Gosh.